So we're recording now. All right. So that's the first relationship, is the relationship between you and your broker. Now let's talk about the more popular relationships that you're going to have. Somebody is going to hire you. You get your agent, you get your real estate license, you're a real estate agent. You're looking for business. You're cold calling, knocking on doors and doing all that stuff. You call somebody and they say, "Yes, you know what? I was looking to sell my house. All right. I want to talk to you about, you selling my house." You get your listing package, you get your package together, you run over to their house. You got all this paperwork, right? And so y'all are talking. You do a really, really great listing presentation, and the seller wants to list with you. You whip out your listing agreement and all the documents, you go over with them, they okay with it, they sign it, you sign it. You have just created an agency relationship with them, right? They have now, because of that contract, they have become your principal right here, and I would write that down, or client, and they hired, which that principal hires the broker. You're just representing that broker, right? And what you're being hired for could be many things, but typically when we're working in real estate is one thing, and that's to sell their house. That's it. That's what you're being hired for, right? And what that relationship is called a special or specific relationship. You were hired to do one thing, and that was to sell that person's house. Represent us, and you're going to represent that person in one single business transaction. Just by them signing that, they're not going to be your client and on in perpetuity. They hired you to sell that house with that paperwork, right? That's called special agency or specific agency. Write the differences down. Actually, I'm gonna write these down, and I'll make sure that I send y'all a list of the words. And it may be redundant, but um, what we need to do is just make sure we go over these words as many times as possible. So we need to know that special agency and specific agency is the same thing. So write that down. That's the same thing. And on the test, they may use specific agency, and on our practice test, they may use specific agency. All right. So they're called the principal or your client. They're going to hire the broker through you to represent them, and you're going to be paid to bring a willing and able customer or a buyer, a tenant, it might be a rental, to the table. All right. The client agency relationship is governed by fiduciary duties of trust, confidence, and good faith. Next thing we're going to write down fiduciary duties. You're going to get sick of hearing these, because when you create that relationship by giving them the paperwork to sign, you owe them duties. All right. You owe them, through that agency, you owe them this thing called old car. Write that down. That's an acronym. It's something that's going to help you remember your duties to your client. So write down old car. And you can write it vertically. Write it vertically, not horizontally. Write it down, old car the long way. And the O stands for obedience. What is obedience? You have to obey any lawful order, because you signed that contract with them. You have to obey any lawful order that they ask you to do. That's a definition that you're going to want to know. You have 6 fiduciary duties, and the acronym for it is OCAR. All right. So I'm going to jump down here real quick, and I'm going to show you what the O means in OCAR right here. Obedience. Provided actions, instructions are legal. Hey, I don't want my house sold. I mean, I don't want my house shown after 9 p.m. or I don't want my house shown before 10 a.m. That's a legal order, and you have to obey that order. Or I don't want a yard sign on my yard. So because you have a fiduciary duty with with the seller or your client, you have to obey their lawful orders. All right. The next one is going to be loyalty. Write that down. All right. Place the client's interests above the customer and yourself. What that means is, the way you do that and make sure you do it is you treat them like they're you. If you wouldn't do it for you, you wouldn't do it for them. All right. So loyalty. All right. You can't be out here saying like, hey, um, I got a way to trick my client. You would never do that to you, and you owe them that fiduciary duty. Okay. The next one in the D is disclosure. Now we gotta now these are a little different where we see them, but full disclosure is the next one. That's the D in old car. OLDCAR, old car. Disclosures means property condition, customers, and material facts. So most of the time you have the disclosure for the property and you have the disclosures from the transaction. All right. So that disclosure means the property's condition. If there's a leaky basement and you see it and the seller's trying to hide it, you have a duty to disclose it, and you have a duty to let the seller know that they got to disclose it. We're going to get deeper into this, but disclosure is a key, one of your fiduciary duties to your client. All right. Um, Material facts, right? Disclosures. This is the rule of disclosures just for your practice when you out there. If your customers say, should I disclose this? Make them disclose it. Because if there's a question of disclosure, then like, look, I'm not even about to try to pay like I'm a lawyer or something like that. Let's disclose it. Okay. So disclosure is the next fiduciary duty that you're owed. The next one is going to be reasonable care and diligence. What that means is the whole reason they making you take the test is to make sure that you're not running around here not knowing what you're doing. So you got to have skill and you got to be competent and you got to be proactive. You can't let paperwork sit around and not send it to them, or you can't, you have to show some level of expertise in what you do. It's two ways that you get competent, taking things like this, going to continuing education and things like that, or you can get competent through other people. If you don't know something, don't ever be afraid to say, I don't know it, but I'll find out. I got a team of people that I can ask. You can call me up, you can call your broker up or whoever up, but you become competent through other people. You can become competent independently through your own actions and your studies, and then you can become competent through others. And in this game, there's a lot of people that have seen a lot of things. And with a lot of the properties that I've been selling, and I know who I sell to, there's always speed bumps, there's always technicalities, there's always things that, I got to explain and I got to be competent and I got to be proactive about. So the C is reasonable care or care. That's the fourth letter. The A is accounting. If there's money involved in a transaction, you have to handle it properly, and you got to document it, and you got to know that that you're not certain things that you can and can't do with money that's coming from your client. We're gonna go over that a little bit more, but accounting is one of the fiduciary duties. And the last one is going to be, hold on 1 second. All right, so the R is going to be, I'm sorry, damn, where is it at? Where is it at? Loader care, counting, we got that. Okay. I'm sorry, I mixed it up. Scratch that C is going to be confidentiality. I'm sorry about that. It's confidentiality. Things that's supposed to be confidential extend and it extends beyond the relationship that y'all have. Okay. And then the R is reasonable care or care. Sometimes they put the C as you'll see this when you ladies and gentlemen are studying, you'll see that they kind of change the words around. The R is reasonable care and the C is confidentiality. So I apologize about that. And confidential, I mean, I don't really need to go too far into confidential. Like social security numbers are confidential, account numbers are confidential, personal things that happen at the property that are not disclosable items are confidential. Anything that your client wants to be confidential you should keep confidential. All right. All right. So those are your fiduciary duties. These are the 6 most important things that you can know for agency. because everything comes off these 6 things. So know the definition for those. And let's go back up here and look at the other relationships that we form when we get a client. Okay. Now, remember when I said special agency is that you're hired to do one thing, right? Represent in a single business transaction. You normally cannot contract for the principal. In other words, you can't sign off for your client to agree to do something. All right. Characterized by the brokerage relationship. All right. What that means is when you have a broker, you take it and you take it and you go to them and you say, okay, do you just want me to sell the house? Do you want me to manage? There might be a 2-family. You want me to manage the house and collect rents and stuff like that. So the brokerage relationship is what defines that agency. I'll go into that a little bit later, a little bit deep in depth, a little bit later. Now, what is general agency? 99% of the time, you're going to be a special agent, and that's it. You're not going to really act as a general agent or a universal agent. All right. A general agent can represent in business matters. Most of the time, you're a general agent when you're dealing with some type of cash flowing property or something like that, right? Where there's money involved, you got to find tenants, you got to maybe schedule showings. And what a general agent does is more than one thing. You might be hired to sell the house, collect the rent until the house sells, manage the property if there's needed repairs or anything like that while the house is on the market. They may say, hey, I need you to do a little bit more than just sell the house. I'm out of town. I can't be there. I need you to go order POSs and all this type of stuff, right? You're going to get paid more if you're doing that type of stuff, okay? That's a general agency. So the way I would help, how I help it, the way I remember this, okay, and what helps me remember this is that I know special means one thing, special or specific means one thing, general means many things, and then the last one, universal, means everything. All right. And in general, you can contract for the principal, but it's limited. You're not going to be able to do everything for your principal. Like, say, for instance, you need a repair, and the principal is giving you a book of checks to write for small petty, like a petty cash checkbook or something like that, and you got it connected to an account. You can write out the check and sign it and give it to the vendor who fixed the property. So you have a limited ability to contract for the principal, okay, in that instance, depending on the type of agreement you and the principal, you and your client make up. And then the last one is universal. You hardly ever will see this. You're representing in all matters that's associated with real estate. It's literally a power of attorney, and you can do everything for them. So again, special specific is one thing, which is typically to sell a house. General is many things. That's more like property management. And then universal is all things. That's power of attorney. All right. So right there, we have covered number one. All right. You have a relationship with your broker and you have a relationship with your client, either it being a buyer or a seller. Once you have them sign a contract saying they're going to work with you, you have now created agency and you have those fiduciary duties that we talked about. All right, so let's look at number two. What's number two? It might be, I might have already covered some of it, but let's go to number two here real quick. All right, let me share my screen, and you can look on your pamphlet as well. All right, so the next one, types of listing contracts. These are very important. We need to know the type of listing contracts, because what is that contract? That contract is what binds them as my principal. A purchase agreement is what binds me to the buyer and creates the agency. So the two main things that create agency is typically a listing contract and a purchase agreement. Listing contract for the seller, purchase agreement for the buyer. But now things have changed. We have because the law has changed, we have to make a buyer that's looking to buy a house our client immediately. We're not even supposed to show them a house until they have signed an agreement to work with us. So there's this thing called a buyer's representation form. That's really what creates the purchase, the agency now, But before a year ago, you didn't have agency when you were helping a buyer until they filled out a purchase agreement and you're about to represent them in a deal. That's good. Y'all don't even have to worry about that no more because y'all now can start with the new way. The new way is you fill out that buyer's representation agreement to create the agency with the buyer, or you fill out the listing agreement to create the agency with the listing agreement. Okay. So, what are the types of listing agreements that you can have? Or what are the type of agreements that we can go over with our seller to create an agency relationship? All right. So let me bring this back up. And we are going to go to that handout. So let me stop that. That's not what I was looking for. Okay, this is what I was looking for. That was behind that. All right. So I'm going to skip way down here to because it's something else. I don't even really want to go over these here up here because it's a better place in the book right here. All right, listing agreements. Okay. And here's the types. Remember, the pamphlet said, what are the type of listing agreements? It's a hierarchy. And just remember this. And what I mean by hierarchy, what I mean is best, good, okay, not good at all. So the exclusive right to sell sounds just like the exclusive agency, right? Exclusive right to sell is the best type of listing that you can get. It's given to one broker, and no matter who sells the property, they get the commission. 99.9% of your contracts will be exclusive right to sell. Their broker won't even allow you to do any of these other ones. All right. But an exclusive right to sell is given to one broker. It will be in writing, because if it's not in writing, it's not enforceable. It still could be a valid contract, but it's just not enforceable. You can't go to the court and say, he told me this. They were like, where is it in writing? And it says usually must be in writing. It must have an expiration date, and the broker gets commission if the property transfers during the period. No matter what, if you go over to that person's house, that person that we said we're going to list the property, and the example I gave earlier, you're going to say, hey, we're going to do a 6-month listing, right? And if I sell this within that 6-month period, I get the commission. Or if the house sells within that 6-month period, you get the commission. So it don't matter who sells it under an exclusive right to sell, because you're gonna get your money. All right. The next one, the way I want you to remember this is exactly as the exclusive right to sell, but there's only one person that can sell the property and you don't get your money. They don't get the money if the seller sells the house. And that's why it says exclusive, excepting the owner. It's exactly this one, but there's one person that if they sell it, you don't get your commission. That's why it's the best, good, okay, the worst. So know the differences between your listing contracts. An exclusive agency listing is exclusive, accepting the owner. It can be oral or written. It must expire. You see this? These two are very similar. And it says broker gets commission unless owner sells. So the way I remember the exclusive right to sell and the exclusive agency, one of them, both of them I'm gonna get my money, but except one of them, if the owner sells it, I ain't gonna get it, and that's the exclusive agency. Typically, what you're looking for on the test is this exclusive right to sell. Right to sell, exclusive right to sell. All right. The next one is called an open listing. And an open listing is one where it's just the property is just for everybody. I'm gonna just say it like that. Anybody can sell it. It's just out there. The first broker brings a buyer, they get the commission. They have no allegiance to anybody, any broker. It's just they just out there, right? It's non-exclusive. It means that anybody can sell it, oral or written. And I'm gonna just take you with these listing agreements. It better be written writing, because it's gonna be hard to enforce something that's oral, right? It's no stated expiration date in the open listing. Now, here's another word that you need to know and write that down. procuring cause. Procuring cause means who was the cause of sell or this property selling. Let me get another book. This one's full. Hold up. Who was the reason the house sold? And whoever the reason the house sold, they're the ones that get the commission. All right. So, all right, here we go. So procuring cause, know the definition of that. You might see it on the test. That they haven't been testing for that as much as they used to, but know what procuring cause means. All right. Know what that means, right? No commission if the client procures the customer. What that means is if the client is the one that goes out and they got all these brokers looking for a property, for a buyer, and the seller sells it to somebody, none of them get it. Okay. This is like maybe 1% of all listing agreements is this, and you're never going to do one. All right. Net listing. What that is all sales proceed above the seller's minimum price go to the broker. Discourage is not illegal. It's not illegal in Ohio, but it does violate your what? Your fiduciary duties, and I'm going to tell you why. But let me just give you an example of a net listing. All right. Give me 1 second. Do this again. Y'all see that whiteboard?
Yeah.
Y'all good? Okay. So look. So here we go. All right. So let's do this. So here's an example of a net listing. So we're gonna keep that same person that we talked to when we went over their house. And say for instance, you go there and they say, "Hey, I want a net. This is how much I want to make. My house is worth $100,000, right? I don't care what you sell it for. I just want to net 90,000. I don't know why it's doing that, but whatever. Let's just go back up here. I want a net 90,000. So I want a $90,000 net. And that's after all the fees and stuff are paid for, right? And so you I don't care what you sell it for, I just want 90,000. So you go out to the streets and you market the property and you get somebody to offer 125 on it. And so they say, okay, well, good. You got 90 is, I'm gonna keep about $25,000 on that listing. Right? That's not a problem. That's beautiful. You win, you get 25,000, the seller get the money. That's not the problem. It's never going to be the problem. But what if there's somebody said, I'll give you 97 for it? And the closing cost is like 6,000 for your seller, and you're only going to net 1,000. You're not even probably going to bring that to the seller. Right? So now you're evaluating your loyalty. Right? And well, what if they said I'll give you 93 for it, or exactly to the point where the seller nets exactly what he wants, but you get no money? You're not going to want to do that deal. So that's why net listings violate your fiduciary duty. So you sell 100,000. What if somebody brought now? If they bring a listing for or a buyer and it's 125,000, you have no problem. I'm gonna tell them about that. Now, what you may have a problem with is the seller saying, "Damn, I didn't know it was worth that much. Now I don't want 90,000." But now you got them in the contract saying that that's what the way it's gonna go. All right. So that's a net listing. The reason why it's not illegal in Ohio, but it could violate your fiduciary duties, and they really don't let people do them. Your broker will never let you do them. All right. And so that's hold up. Let me get back to the book. So that's what a net listing is. Discouraged if not illegal, and it's determined by the agency within whatever state that you're in. All right. Now here's the buyer agency agreements down here that I was talking about. Create a fiduciary relationship with the buyer when you sign these agreements right here. Right. So we're just gonna stay there. This is a buyer's agreement. We're not on buyers yet. We on just listing agreements, and that deals with the seller. The next thing that I wanted to do real quick, and I'm gonna just do this real quick. And hold on one second. Let me pull it up here. I'm gonna have another person explain to you what they are. All right. So here we go. Give me 1 second.
Wix gives you the freedom to tell your story with a professional website that reflects who you are and what you have to offer. Customize every element of the website.
Today we are going to talk about the different types of listing. First, let's go over what an exclusive listing is. In an exclusive listing, only one broker can be hired. The listing belongs to the broker exclusively. Because only one broker can be hired, there must be a specific termination date. It can't be 90 days from the completion of construction. It has to be 90 days from signing. If 2 exclusive listings are signed, the seller could be liable for 2 commissions. This is all stated in the contract. Remember, in a listing, there should only be 1 commission. The seller hires the broker to find the buyer, and that's it. People think there are 2 commissions, one to the broker of the seller and one to the broker of the buyer. Some people even think there are 4 if you include the agents. But in actuality, there is only 1. The broker of the seller gets the commission and then shares that 1 commission with the broker of the buyer for helping him or her find a buyer. The way that 1 commission is divided must be disclosed to the seller. The brokers will then share that commission with the agent who facilitated the transaction on their behalf. An exclusive authorization and right to sell listing is more commonly known, well, as a listing. I say that because your standard listing is an exclusive right to sell listing. You know, when you see one sign in the front yard on an open house that says for sale, that is typically an exclusive right to sell listing. The key element of this type of listing is that regardless of how a buyer comes to the conclusion that they want to buy the house, the broker is getting paid a commission. This helps avoid any potential conflict between the broker who is trying to solicit a buyer and the seller who hired them to list the property. To put it in more technical terms, the listing broker does not need to show that he or she is the procuring cause of the buyer. Next, we have an exclusive agency listing. Much like in the exclusive right to sell listing, the seller would only work with 1 broker. However, there is one huge difference. In an exclusive agency listing, if the owner sells it themselves, the agent gets no commission. That's right, nothing. This means that the agent would have to prove that they were the reason the buyer is there to buy the house. In terms of the real estate exam, the agent would have to prove that they were the procuring cause of the buyer. Imagine there was a broker for sale sign in the front yard of a house, and right next to it there was a for sale sign by owner. Thinking about that makes you realize why agents do not use an exclusive agency listing. If somebody's buying the house, the last thing you want to do is fight with the seller about who procured the buyer. Remember, if the seller can prove that they brought them there, under an exclusive agency listing, they will pay you nothing. Imagine if a seller wanted to sell a house and a broker came up to him and said, "If I bring a buyer, will you pay me a commission?" And the seller said, "Yes, of course." Then 10 minutes later, another broker came up to him and said, "If I bring a buyer, will you pay me a commission?" And the seller said, "Yes, of course." Then this kept happening over and over and over again, and the seller has agreed to the same deal with all of these brokers. Most probably, they would be using an open listing. Does not sound like a bad thing, right? Whoever brings the buyer gets paid for it, as long as they are the principal in the transaction or they have an active real estate license. The problem with this is, why would you as a broker spend time and money advertising somebody's house to find a buyer if there's a good chance somebody else will get paid and you will get nothing because the listing is not exclusive to anybody? You as the broker would have to prove that you were the procuring cause of the buyer. This can be very tricky to do. Imagine if every broker sign was in the front yard. How do you determine which broker sign drew in that buyer? This is just one of many complications with this type of listing. That is why you do not see this in a standard residential sale. However, there are situations where this type of listing is appropriate. For example, the developer or builder would enter into an open listing with brokerage firms in the area. They bring their buyers into the subdivision, and if the buyer buys, then they get paid. The last listing we're going to go over is a net listing. A net listing is when an agent agrees to sell an owner's property for a set minimum price. Anything over that minimum price belongs to the agent as commission. Thus, in a net listing, there is no stipulated selling price and no stipulated commission. For example, a property owner wants to obtain $500,000 for their property. If the agent sells it for $550,000, they make $50,000. Sounds great, right? The problem is that if the agent sells for $500,000, the agent makes nothing. The agent would have to manipulate the list price in order to earn a commission. This creates an inherent conflict of interest, making it illegal in most states.
All right, so I always like to have other people explain the same thing. And it's because it's that important for this section of the test. And so with what we just went over, we should understand what a principal is. We should understand that a principal is our client. We should understand that in order for somebody to be our client, we have to have an agreement. And that agreement should be in writing. I don't care what that book says. It better be in writing because it's not enforceable in court. All right. So now we've created the agency relationship with the listing agreement, and again, over the broker's buyer agreement. We've created that agency. And so now we have fiduciary duties because we created that agency. Well, what are now we going to do since we created that agency? That document should tell and spell out what you're doing and how much you're getting paid and how long it's going to take for you to do it. And so that's agency. Agency relationship is creating a relationship or a promise to do something for somebody that hired you. All right. And they hired you for, it could be for one thing, it could be for many things, or it could be for everything. All right. Again, exclusive. Now, in that one, it was kind of confusing because he said exclusive listing. Exclusive listing and exclusive agency is different. Exclusive agency, which is the second one, the lesser of the two, is just saying I have an exclusive agency with you as the seller. However, if you sell the property, you get the commission. Okay. I mean, you don't have to pay commission. So the next thing I want to do is look at some specific questions about that's going to be on the test. All right. So let me find those questions. Give me a second. Pull these up. Any questions or anything before we move on? Anything. You can type it in the chat, or you can type it in the chat, or you can just unmute and ask them. All right, here we go right here. Let's talk about this real quick. I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit, but it's all going to be explained. So, fiduciary duties question. Here's the old card. I can send this to y'all if y'all want me to. This is going to be like a similar question that's on the test. It says, identify the term that best describe non-agent obligations to perform tasks with competency and skill expected of a real estate agent.
What about Bon Voyage? Any other night, I'd go after my.
No, 1 second. Okay, so what this is asking you, these are questions about OCAR. What is the term in old car that describes a non-agent's obligation to perform tasks with competence and skill expected in the real estate profession? I don't know why they got non-agents. Let me take that out of there. Which one of those things describes an agent's obligation to perform a task with competence and skill expected of a real estate agent? Is it obedience? Is it loyalty? Is it disclosure? Is it confidentiality? Is it accountability or reasonable care? Which one of those is it? Somebody came into the chat. Who is this? Okay.
Jasmine.
Yeah, Jasmine. Exactly. Reasonable care. That's exactly what it is, right? You
Yeah.
owe them, you owe them competence. And this is what it says. In the realm of real estate, various duties and obligations are expected from professionals, whether they are acting as agents or non-agents in transactions. Among these, the concept of reasonable care stands out as a fundamental expectation. It refers to the obligation to perform tasks with competency and skill that is expected of a real estate professional, ensuring that all actions taken are in the best interest of the client and are executed with the necessary diligence and care. Reasonable care is, hold on, let me correct this right here. Reasonable care is the correct term that describes a non-agent obligation to perform tasks with competency and skill expected from the real estate profession. This principle is crucial in the real estate industry, as it ensures that all professionals, regardless of their specific role in the transaction, adhere to the standards of performance that protects the interests of the clients they serve. It encompasses a wide range of activities from conducting property inspections to providing accurate and timely information. The expectation of reasonable care ensures that all professionals are held to a standard that promotes trust and reliability in their services. The worst thing and the quickest way to lose your license is to misrepresent or be incompetent. All right. So that's literally like a great example of what reasonable care is. All right. Let's see here. Let me see if I got these are some of the questions that you're going to see, but I don't want to go over this because these are ones that I'm going to ask y'all without this big write-up right here. So those are going to be coming down. I'm not going to give you the answer on those. All right, here's one. Here's about exclusive agency. So I pulled these out because these are going to be some of the type of questions that you get on the test. All right, now remember our hierarchy. Remember we established a hierarchy with the listing agreements, right? We said an exclusive right to sell is the best. An exclusive agency is good. Open listing is not real good. You ain't never gonna do it. And then a net listing, you ain't never gonna do that. Okay, so the question asks, what characterizes an exclusive agency agreement in real estate? All right. What characterizes an exclusive agency agreement? Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong. Hold on, let's go to this. Is the one we're on right here. Excuse me. It says because this should be up here. My bad. That should be up here. All right. All right. So this says under an open listing, if broker A shows a property to a buyer who later purchases the property after being reintroduced by broker B, who is entitled to the commission? Again, if broker B, and I'm just going to show you the answer. It says under an open listing. Let's kind of like visualize this. If broker A shows the property to a buyer, so you're working with a client, right? Y'all went to go see this house, and you showed it to him, walked through it, everything is cool. And then the buyer later purchases the property after being reintroduced it to broker B, who's entitled to the commission. All right. In this scenario, broker B is entitled to the commission. He's the one who finalized the sale with the buyer. Despite broker A's initial introduction to the property to the buyer, it is the act of closing the sale or procuring the person who ultimately bought the house entitles the broker to the commission in the open listing agreement. That's in the open listing. You would never have this happen in like an exclusive listing because there wouldn't be two brokers. It would only be one broker. Okay. In an open listing agreement, the key fact here is not who showed the property first, but who was instrumental in completing the transaction. Broker B's successful facilitation of the sale directly aligns with the stipulations of an open listing, where the commission is awarded to the broker who consummates the sale, making Broker B the correct answer and the recipient of the commission. Broker B procured the sale. All right. Here's a general. Let me just talk about some of the we didn't go over dual agency. Let me see. Agency relationship. Right, here we go. Let's do this. Okay, let's answer this one. In a special agency relationship, the agent is typically authorized to do what? Y'all can answer in the feed, y'all can say it out loud. But in a special/specific agency, the agent is typically authorized to do what? And I'm gonna give a couple minutes for everybody to look at this and answer this. And then I'll give about a minute. Did anybody come in the feed? Yeah, nobody said anything in the chat. All right. All right, I'm gonna ask it again. Right, JB, in a single business transaction, or what I want y'all to remember is just to sell a house. Special or specific agency, my only job is to sell that house. And we're talking in the realm of real estate. Everything is conceptually with real estate. All right. So that's what this question is. So we talked about that one right there. In special agency relationships/specific, the agent is typically authorized to do what? Sell that house. That's it. And it's going to be represent that person to sell their house. All right. What's this one? A property manager is hired to oversee property, handle leases, and manage repairs, is most accurately described as having what type of agency relationship with the property owner? Remember, we only got 3 types of agency relationship: universal, which is all; general, which is many; and special or specific, which is one. That's a general. Is that not a general agency relationship? And I believe it's that Maria. The Maria answered general. A couple people answered general in the feed. And so that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. All right. Let's see here. I'm just trying to find some real good ones for y'all. Okay, here's one. How is agency relationships most commonly established in real estate? And what it's a specific thing that I want y'all to remember. And I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of time. And see, these are brain teasers. And there's really no way to get this. Well, it is a way to get it wrong, but it's okay if you get it wrong. We get them wrong here. We don't get them wrong in the test. And as long as we have like a discussion and a dialogue, we can really kind of aim at trying to just retain this stuff. All right. And I'm gonna just give it to y'all. Agency relationship is created in real estate through a listing agreement or a buyer broker agreement. All right, it's created between an agreement between you as the agent and the seller as the owner of the property, or a buyer that's looking for a property. All right. A real estate agent discovers they have a financial interest in a competing property after agreeing to represent the buyer. What should the agent do? Now he or she has created a relationship with the buyer, but they got a financial interest in the property that the buyer wants to offer on. What should the agent do? This is going to go to your old car. What they should do, y'all, is that they should disclose it. They should just say, I got an interest in this property. All right. So let me do this real quick. I'm gonna go back to our pamphlet real quick and share that. And it's gonna be we're gonna start answering some this is a pamphlet. Hold on. Stop that. All right, so this is the pamphlet. So now we talked about agency relationships and how they've been established. We talked about the type of listing contracts, buyer brokerage, tenant representation contracts. I want to take that and put that on a whole other side, because when I do that, I'm gonna talk about the buyers and the purchase agreements all collectively in one. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the fiduciary duties to the agents. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about, you know what, let's do this. Let's see if we can find some questions, some multiple choice questions to ask y'all to see how y'all retain them. And we're gonna only look for those questions that we went over in agency. All right. So we got about another hour to go. Let's do like 10. Let's do 10 questions. And let's try to answer these within 2 minutes each time. And what we're looking for are questions about agency relationships. Okay, we're gonna skip this one. This is not a question right there. On with that. Let's do it like this. Give me a second, y'all. I want to see something. Okay, here we go. All right. Here we go. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Let's answer this one. An agent representing a seller learns that a buyer who is not their client is unaware of a major legal issue with the property. What is the agent's responsibility? Again, an agent representing a seller learns that the buyer who is not their client is unaware of a major legal issue with the property. What is that agent's responsibility? So let's paint the picture. You're representing the seller, but then you find out that the buyer doesn't know about a major legal issue that's associated with the property. What is your responsibility? Even though you represent the seller, the buyer's not your client. What is your responsibility as an agent? What we do here, y'all, is we don't answer the question. Like, we don't answer the question first. Like, people want to just dive right into the question and answer it. We got to learn how to take the test and eliminate. And that's the first thing that we're going to do. And I always, when we do these questions, I'm going to always eliminate the bad question first. So I really need y'all to participate in these types of questions and these types of sessions, especially multiple choice, because we got to eliminate questions. We just don't get to answering questions. The best way to pass this test is to get rid of the noise, get rid of the stuff that you know is not the answer. So now you can just look at 2 questions and be like, okay, one of them is the answer. I'm going to pick B or C or A or whatever. So let's eliminate first. Number one, inform the buyer of the legal issue. Okay. Now I'm not eliminating that one. Advise the seller to disclose the issue.
I'm sorry. I don't have that, whatever you have. I don't have that screen pulled up.
Hold up.
I don't see it.
Yeah, this is what I want y'all to do. If y'all don't see me sharing the screen, that means it's not on the right screen. Like,
Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you.
All right, my bad, y'all. That's my bad. And I ain't my last class ended in November, so I got to get back to, you know, doing the things and the sharing and stuff that I was doing back then. I'm gonna get on it. I know when I'm not sharing. Let's start all over again. This is an agent, because I like to have y'all. And another thing too that I found out about the classes, y'all, is if y'all don't participate, like if I'm reading the question, you don't touch it. I call it touching the question. Like you don't touch the question. So yeah, you hear me reading it, but the retention is limited because you're not reading it. So either number one, read the question, allow y'all mute it, read it aloud to yourselves so y'all can start seeing some of the ways they're asking these questions. Because it's a way that they put the words together where you find out they're trying to trick me. So if y'all just listening to me, that's not the right thing to do. Y'all need to be reading this question aloud out where y'all at right now, just getting the way that they answer these questions or they ask these questions. So in this question, it says an agent representing the seller learns that a buyer who is not their client is unaware of major legal issues with the property. What is the agent's responsibility? All right, is it one, to inform the buyer of the legal issue? Is it two, to advise the seller to disclose the issue? Three, keep the information confidential? Or four, encourage the seller to resolve the issue? I'm going to get rid of the worst answer and I'm getting rid of this one. Now, this X over here, when y'all get in here and y'all can practice with this, right? Y'all can get in here and practice with this. All y'all got to do is log in. Y'all can practice with some of this stuff. All right. Do we keep the count? I'm getting rid of that one. All right. So now we got inform the buyer of the issue, advise the seller to disclose the issue, encourage the seller to resolve the issue. Now, some people was up in the chat, so we need to get rid of one more of those.
I would say encourage the seller to resolve the issue.
Get rid of that one?
I would.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that? All right. We're going to move quick on to getting rid of them, y'all, because now this is what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. How many people think they would be able to pass this test if it was only two answers to every question?
Me.
Or you would get a 50-50 chance to get it right. Right? Now, this is how we tell when we're weak, because if we're eliminating the right answer, we need to study this. It's another thing, too. This test has 2,000 questions or something like that on it. And what happens is that in 2,000 questions, there are going to be some bad questions, okay? So don't get mad if you don't know it, because what we'll see next is how the percentage of the people that got this one right. All right, so do you inform the buyer of the issue, or do you advise the seller to disclose the issue? Somebody has some conviction to answer that question. This is the disclosure question. Do you disclose it, or do you let the seller disclose it? And this is one of those questions. It's just a bad question. So we get them wrong here. So, okay, somebody said they picked one. D said he picking one. All right. D got conviction. We're going to go with somebody picked two. I needed somebody to break the tie. D say one. I think Maria says two. Now I need somebody to break the tie. We're going to go with whatever this next person say. Anybody want to be brave and give an answer?
I'm going to say the A.
A, you going to say A or one? All right. So
one,
D,
yeah.
D and Angela say one. It's going to be advised the seller to disclose the issue, and I'm going to read it why. But this is a bad question because more people got it wrong than right. And I hate starting the class off like that, but I knew when I saw the question but this is a bad question. You know it's a bad question because more people got it wrong than right, but let's see why they say that, okay? It says the correct course of action for an agent who learns a major legal issue with the property is to advise the seller to disclose the issue. This approach aligns with the agent's fiduciary duty to act in the seller's best interest, ensuring that the transaction proceeds legally and ethically. Disclosing of material facts such as a significant legal issue is required by law in most jurisdictions to ensure that all parties are making informed decisions. By advising the seller to disclose, the agent helps protect the seller from potential legal consequences that could arise from withholding material information. This action also this action also maintains the integrity of the transaction process by upholding the agent's ethical obligations. That is probably the best way that you want to go. You don't want to say too much and say something that you didn't necessarily do. You let the seller do that, right? So right here, we always talk about we could get competent through the wrong answers too. So this is why they said that first one wasn't right, y'all. Informing a buyer of the legal issue directly would be incorrect because it could potentially violate the agent's duty of loyalty to the seller. The agent's primary obligation to their client, the seller, is not to the buyer. While transparency in real estate transactions are crucial, it is the seller's responsibility to disclose material facts to the buyer, not the seller's agent. Keeping this information confidential is also incorrect, as it could lead to a legal and ethical violation. Non-disclosure of significant legal issues can result in severe consequences for both the seller and the agent, including lawsuits for fraud or misrepresentation. We're gonna leave it there, but y'all pretty much get that though, right? You don't want to breach your fiduciary duty of loyalty because your client is not the damn buyer, it's the seller. All right, that was a good question though. All right. Talking more about fiduciary duties. Which is the fiduciary duty of real estate agent to their principal? Only one of these is right, obviously. Is it advertising the property? Is it conducting open houses? Is it confidentiality? Is it setting the listing price?
Confidentiality.
Remember, we don't answer it. Oh, you must want to get rid of confidentiality. Okay, we're going to get rid of confidentiality.
Oh, wait.
Because what I'm going to show y'all is by eliminating every time you see a multiple choice question, it's going to identify your weaknesses. Because if it's two things. If you get rid of the right answer, right? If you get rid of the right answer, then you know you're weak at that. But if you get rid of the wrong answers, you get a better chance of answering the question. We're trying to get you down to the point where you got a 50-50 chance of getting that answer right. And this is the other reason why I do the elimination thing. I'm going to show you. I'm going to eliminate one. I'm going to get rid of this setting the listing price. Somebody else get rid of one of these bad answers.
Get rid of two.
Two. Okay, conducting open houses. So now at this point, we got to read the question over again because we're getting ready to answer it and we want to make sure they're not trying to trick us. All right, we know that this is what they do. So we are building in our test taking skills by eliminate, right? We want to identify first if we're eliminating the right answer, then we know we need to go back and study this. And if we're not, and we get it down to a 50% chance, because I can close my eyes and pick one of them, I got a 50% chance of being right. All right, so let's read the question again. Which is a fiduciary duty of a real estate agent to their principal or client? Is it one, advertising the property, or two, confidentiality? All right,
Confidentiality.
I will say confidentiality.
We got a consensus. It's confidentiality, right? Now,
Yeah.
here's what we're going to look at too. 93% of the people got that right. So if you're sitting up here in class and there's 7 people in here and you don't know what it is, write this down. Be honest with yourself and say, I don't know that. Right? And write it down. And then what we'll do is on a Saturday or Sunday, me and you can call me, hey, I need about a 30-minute hour for you to explain this because I don't want to go on to the next section without you having, let's say, 80 to 85% of the material that you need to know for that section. because there is a lot of nuanced stuff that you're just not going to be able to get initially as we're going through this stuff. But we got to eliminate. And the next most important thing is to read why we got it right and why the answer is wrong. Confidentiality is the correct duty in this context because it directly pertains to the agent's responsibility to safeguard the principal's private information. This includes any discussion about financial matters, motives for selling or buying, and other personal information that could affect the outcome of the transaction. The duty of confidentiality extends beyond the termination of the agreement. Again, the duty of confidentiality extends beyond the termination of the agreement or the agency relationship, meaning the agent must keep the principal's information private indefinitely unless given permission to do so or if required by law to disclose. You know, if you got to go to court, you can't keep it confidential. They're gonna subpoena you. All right. This one is such a high percentage of us getting it right. I'm not going to read the wrong answers, but this is a confidentiality. This is old car. Next question. We haven't went over expressed and implied agency. We'll talk about that. I'm going to skip this one. All right, we can do this one. All right, let's read the question. I'm going to give you all a second to read it aloud, and then I'll read it. All right. The question asks, upon discovering a conflict of interest in the agency relationship, what created that relationship? A contract, either a buyer's broker agreement or a listing agreement. What is the buyer's most appropriate action? Again, upon discovering a conflict of interest in an agency relationship, what is the broker's appropriate action? We need to eliminate one of these, right? Now, it says 1, continue representation. 2, disclose the conflict immediately. 3, seek advice from another broker. 4, withdraw from the agreement quietly. I'm going to get rid of 4. I'm just going to get rid of that one. All right. And JB said she would eliminate that one too. Anybody? I need one more eliminate. Okay. Maria said eliminate.
Upon discovering a conflict of interest in an agency relationship.
Right. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So we got rid of 3 and 4. So now what do? We read the question over again. Upon discovering a conflict of interest in an agency relationship, what is the broker's most appropriate action? Is it to continue to represent or disclose the conflict immediately? So now do y'all see
I think
how the right answer illuminates itself? Like if you eliminate it, you ain't even looking at these no more. You just looking at these. This how I look. Hold on. I can't get it to go down, but this how I look. I can do this. That's how I look right there. Imagine getting this question and these are the only 2 answers. So we gotta discipline ourselves to move like that on a test. Because by far the most common thing that and it's 97%. So if you didn't know that, then you should have. And you need to write that down. Like I need to go over agency relationships again. But what I was going to say is by far the most that I hear from people that take the test that failed, they say, man, I thought I was doing real good. I was blowing through that test. You can't blow through the test if you're doing what I'm doing, because this is our mentality. We're going to take that test one more time. That's it. The state test and the national test. That's it. And when you go in there with that type of confidence, you don't go in there thinking you sweet. Like, okay, yeah, I got this. You know, you go in there thinking I'm never coming back here again to take the test because I'm leaving out of here with my license. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be diligent, and I'm going to take the things that we're doing here. There's no sense of us doing them here if you're not going to do them on a test. All right. Now, it's going to be some when you read the answer, and hopefully, you know, now when you get to the test, you're like, I know Han said read this, but this one is about like something dual agency or something that I definitely just know the answer. I've seen so many people fail this test because they missed 1 or 2 questions. Like it's ridiculous. Like I feel bad for them because now they got to do all this stuff over again. And if they would have just slowed down and read stuff, you can't tell me that you couldn't have got another 1 or 2 questions right. Most of the time they fail a test or miss that by 1 or 2 questions because they're going moving too fast. All right, so we take our time out, we eliminate, we get 2 questions, and we pick the best answer. Right? And there's going to be an instance where we might eliminate the wrong answer, and then we just know we need to study that. All right, this is the next question. We haven't covered brokers buyers agreement, so I'm not going to really go into that. I just want to go over the stuff that we have talked about a little bit. I know we talked about dual agency in the first class, so I'm going to ask y'all again about dual agency, and we need to know the definition of dual agency. But I'm just going to go over it because I think we can handle it. What does dual agency refer to in a real estate transaction? What does dual agency refer to in real estate transactions? What I want us to start doing too, though, is I want us to start defining what each section is. What agency is that there is a little bit of subjectivity, meaning that there is a couple questions where they can ask you to kind of confuse you. But agency is a definition section, right? Most of the stuff is going to be objective. It's not going to be a whole lot of subjectivity. It's not going to be a whole lot of guesswork. If you know the definitions, you're going to know the answer. Whereas something like principles and practice is all subjectivity because they're going to give us scenarios and then we got to like figure out what it is. Math is objective because there's only one right answer. It ain't kind of A, it ain't kind of B, it's C, and it's not kind of D. Math questions are objective, and that's the answer. Like I said, it's not kind of any of the other answers that they gave. Excuse me. So in this one, it says, what does dual agency refer in real estate? Is it 1, agent represents only the buyer? Is it 2, agent represents only the seller? Is it 3, agent represents both the buyer and seller? Is it 4, 2 agents representing 1 client? I'm going to get rid of 1 and I'm getting rid of this one. Somebody else said get rid of 4.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get rid of 4. So now we do what? We read the question over again, make sure they ain't trying to trick us. What does dual agency refer in real estate? I'll even sit up at the test and say, what does dual agency refer to? And read literally every word. All right. I'm serious. Like, I'm not going back and taking that test again. And as long as that's our mentality throughout this class, we're never going to go back and take that test, which is last time that we're going to go take it. All right. So the agent represents both the buyer and the seller. And that's somebody that, well, I got all 3s I got all 3s. So that's the answer. All right. Now I'm going to show you something else on the next question, but 99% of the people got this right. And this is our opportunity to really become competent. And I'm going to read a lot of this. Excuse me again. In real estate transactions, the concept of dual agency arises when a single agent represents both parties in the transaction, the buyer and the seller. This situation requires a high level of transparency and consent from both parties, as it can lead to potential conflicts of interest. The agent must navigate this delicate balance with the utmost care, ensuring they fulfill their duties to both clients without bias. The principle of the dual agency tests the agent's ability to maintain impartiality and fairness, providing equal service to both the buyer and the seller while adhering to ethical standards. Dual agency is the correct scenario where an agent acts on behalf of both the buyer and the seller in a real estate transaction. This arrangement necessitates explicit agreement. This arrangement necessitates explicit agreement from all involved parties, acknowledging the potential for conflicts of interest and agreeing to proceed under those conditions. So pretty much, you want to have, when you're doing dual agency, what that means is I'm representing the buyer and I'm representing the seller. You cannot be a dual agent if you're not the listing agent, period. Because you'll always just be representing the buyer, bringing the buyer to somebody else's listing. So like listing agents, and I'm going to tell y'all this, like you want to be a listing agent because you can do dual agency, right? You're never going to do dual agency as the buyer's agent, ever, right? So the only way you could be a dual agent is if you represent the seller. And remember, before you even put the property on the computer, you had an agency relationship where you owed the seller the fiduciary duties that we owe them. So before the buyer even came along, you had that agreement with the seller. So then you get the buyer say, I want to buy your listing or whatever. And you say, do you have an agent? They say no. Or they say, will you represent me? That you say yes. And then you got to go back to the seller through a document. It's just a regular document and say, hey, seller, the buyer wants me to represent them to do an agency. So now they get all the commission. Okay, you get all the commission. All right, so dual agency is where one agent, which is the listing agent, is going to represent the buyer and the seller. You cannot you cannot do dual agency as if you don't have the listing. Or I've never seen it happen. So I'm gonna just say that. Here's another question about dual agency. And another thing I want y'all to start paying attention to is that see what they keep asking y'all questions about, because that's going to be on the test. Here's the second question about dual agency back to back. And they'll ask you about dual agency. All right. Define the meaning of dual agency relationship in real estate. Is it one, the broker represents both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction? Is it two brokers from different agencies collaborate to represent a client? Is it three, a broker represents two different sellers in separate transactions? Is it four, an agent represents a buyer in one transaction and a seller in another? I'm going to get rid of one. I'm getting rid of four. I need somebody else to get rid of another one. Two?
Yeah.
Two brokers from different agencies collaborate to represent a client. Okay. All right. At this point, we are about to read the question over again. I don't care how short it is or how long it is. We got to read it over again. Define the meaning of dual agency relationship in real estate. All right. Is it A, the broker represents the buyer and the seller in the same transaction? Or is it B, the broker represents two different sellers in separate transactions? I have one person answering the feed, and I just need one more person to either say it or answer it in the feed. All right, we got two people say one, and that's the right answer. So down here, when y'all in here, and I'm going to send y'all the information to log into this, that's the next step. So y'all will have access to this. When y'all log in, I've created an email that where it sends the note. I'm going to give y'all all that email. So when y'all log into it, it's going to go to the class email. And you have to check. I would just download like Google and open and have this is like these encryptions now where they're going to send you a code. And so you just can't log in, and I can't make an email for I can't make an email for everybody. But this is what this is right here. So we selected one. Now down here, what this says, are you not sure? You see it up there, right there. Red means not sure. Orange means I think I know. Green means I definitely know. So of those who said one, which one are we on? Are we on green, red, orange, or green? Like whoever answered that they were Maria and Jasmine.
Oh, well, after we did the elimination, I felt like I was on the green.
All right, there we go. And it is 98%. That's green. All right, we won't read it because the last question was about dual agency, and they pretty much gonna say the same thing. All right. All right, next question. Now, here's another definition I want y'all to write down. Here's another thing I tell y'all to do. We read a question, right? How is an agency relationship created through express agreement? Well, what is an expressed agreement? Immediately do this. Highlight express, copy it, go over here to Google, get rid of this. And I ain't share my screen, so I'm about to share it though. So this is what I'm saying if you don't know something. We got to teach ourselves to study this stuff, because we've all been out of high school that I would imagine at least 10 years, all of us. And so all I do, if I don't, I'm telling you, I got to make myself competent, period. That's just me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, type express agreement, and see what they say it means. All right. An express agreement is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that is made in writing or orally. I don't like the orally. It's made in writing. It's explicit. Orally could be considered implicit, but if they say made in writing, just remember made in writing. It's expressed, it's explicit. The terms of the agreement are clearly stated, which makes expressed agreements easier to enforce. So going back to our question, when we go back to our question, let me share the screen. All I'm showing y'all is that that's how I would study. Right? If I don't know that word, or if I'm like, I kind of know the word, I'm about to know the word, because I want this to be the last time that I don't know what an express agreement is. And guess what? I only need to be doing this for 2 months. So I'm about to do this for 2 months, and that's just going to be something that I'm going to work into my studies. If I go over these answers and I don't know a word like implied, what in the hell is implied? You got to know that. You got to know what implied means. Because if you don't, that could be the answer. All right. You got to at least while you're looking at it, try to understand what it is. Now, if you retain it, that's another thing. But that's what I do. And I do that if I'm reading an article and I'm like, what the hell word is it? Let me look that up. Because you can just do this. Watch this. Hey, Siri, what does implied mean? She going to give you the definition. We really ain't got a whole lot of excuses. We really don't. She gave me the definition. She ain't say it. She ain't read it, but she just brought it up on my screen. I go, it's that simple, like seconds. So there's no reason to look at a word and don't know what it means. Because we got, you might have, some people got 2 phones, and so it says, how is an agency relationship typically created through an expressed agreement? Is it verbal or written consent? Is it an applied action, meaning implied means through your actions? Is it applied actions of a principal? Is it public announcement by the agent? Is it legal documentation by a third party? I'm going to get rid of the worst answer, which is 3. I need somebody to get rid of another one. All right. Who got rid of this? Let's see who got rid of this here. All right. Would somebody say get rid of 4? So that now leaves us with 2 answers, 1 and 2. How is an agency relationship typically created through a express agreement? Somebody has some conviction to answer this question. Is it verbal or written consent or implied actions through the principal?
A
And
or 1.
Yep. And is it red, orange, or green?
It's green.
Right. And so let's connect now what we did with what we did in the question, and look it up the definition to making this like it's definitely 1. All right. Now 81% got that right. So we're gonna read this. All right, let's read this. Agency relationships of real estate are foundational to the practice governing how agents and their clients interact and represent one another in transactions. Agency relationships can be established in several ways, but the express agreement is a direct and clear method. This involves a clear mutual understanding between the agent and the principal, client, about representations, duties, and rights of each party in a relationship. Verbal or written consent is the correct method for creating the agent relationship through an expressed agreement. That's the essence of agency right there. I'm going to actually copy that. Verbal or written consent. I really don't like the verbal because it's going to be hard to enforce that, but you can verbally agree to represent somebody. It's just means it's not going to be enforceable. All right, or may not be enforceable. Verbal or written consent is the correct method for creating an agency relationship through an expressed agreement. And when you create that relationship, what do you owe your principal? OCAR. No matter if they're the buyer or the seller. And what is OCAR? Obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting or accountability, and reasonable care. All right. All right, we're approaching 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna stop. Let's probably do about 5 more questions, and then I'm gonna leave about 5 to 10 minutes for any questions, and then we'll get organized for next session. Again, I have some time this weekend. Anybody want to do an hour or more this weekend, that'd be great. This is a very important topic. Okay. Now this is implied agency. I don't want to go there yet because we just haven't really talked about implied agency. But now we've went over expressed agency and explicit agency. All right. It says a real estate purchase contract includes a financial contingency. Okay, we know we haven't talked about contingencies yet, even though we could probably answer it. I just kind of want to just saturate ourselves with like types of listing. We haven't had a whole lot of listing agreement questions. This is a contract termination question. This is a good question, but we haven't covered up the things that terminate a contract. All right, so this is a way we could work the math in, and this is an exclusive right to sell contract, and I'm gonna just read the question. If a property listed under an exclusive right to sell contract, what I want y'all to start doing is when y'all see that, what is an exclusive right to sell contract? It's the best contract. So when you see it now, you related it to you. This is what you do. Like, okay, if a property listed under an exclusive right to sell listing, okay, what is an exclusive right to sell listing? Okay, that's the best one that we can have. That's where I get my money, no matter who sells it. For $500 and a $500,000 and agreed to a commission rate of 6%, what is the total commission the broker is entitled to? All right. So we need to figure out what 6% of 500,000 is. So it's simple math, and it's just simple math. And they're going to give you a simple calculator to work with at the test site. So let's do this. The variables are 500,000. And this is how I recommend all y'all do it. Don't try to turn it into a decimal yourself. Just go ahead and say 500,000 times 6%. Remember I said math is objective? If this answer ain't on here, it ain't right. So when we go back to the sheet, when we go back to the share, and we looking for the answer on the calculator, it said 30,000. And right here it says 30,000. That's why I love math. Because once we get to the point and y'all here, y'all come and y'all working on it yourselves, you're going to go there with so much confidence because you're going to know the math. All right. And it's math in probably about every section. And we just need to deal with it like that. So the answer is 30,000 though. 6% of 500,000 is 30,000. 96% of the people got it right. And it's just simple. Now there's a commission equation. Commission equals sales price times commission. So in this question, they said, what is the total commission? Okay, damn, it's a commission equation. So what I've done for y'all, let me stop this. We haven't gotten there yet, but I've given y'all all the equations. All right, here we go. Look at this, y'all. Commission splits. Total commission equals sales price times commission. Co-broke splits, I got all of the different splits here and there in italics. You're probably going to only really need to know a couple of these, right? But in all of them, you multiply. So if they're asking you for total commission, you're going to multiply the sales price times the commission rate. If they ask you the co-broke split, total commission times the co-broke percentage. And in the question, they'll tell you, well, this is the co-broke percentage. But there are equations, and I got these sheets for y'all with questions on them. In the sale of a 100 by 150 by 110 property at $2 a square foot, if the broker's commission is 6%, how does these are the questions that we ain't gonna run from. We're gonna run to them. Because if y'all get these, and there's about 8 to 10 questions on the test, this is your cleanup work right here. Like if you erred on any of the sections, if you get that math, you're gonna take it home. Because we're gonna ace agency and contracts. You know, it might be 30, like I said, it might be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 13 agency. It might be about, yeah, about 12 agency questions and probably about 15 contract questions. That's 30, that's half the test almost. All right. So we got these, but we're just not there yet for me to give them to y'all. And I don't want to overwhelm it to the point where y'all looking at everything. It's kind of like, let's just talk about agency. Let's master agency. Let's get that out the way because it's going to marry with contracts, right? And I didn't want to teach contracts first because you got to know that you're creating a relationship and you're creating a relationship to promise to do something. It could be one thing, it could be many things, it could be everything, right? And that's how we got to think about it. And the things that get us in that relationship is a buyer's broker agreement or a listing agreement. Those are the two primary documents that's going to create an agency relationship with our client. That's taking them from being a customer where there's no contractual obligation to taking them to be an actual client through that agreement. And that agreement should spell out an expiration date, what your job is doing, what those essential elements to create a contract and or more so agency. All right, so that, let me share my screen real quick again here. All right, we're gonna do like two more, and then I want to see if y'all got any questions, and then try to get ready for the next session. I'm gonna talk about this one. It says, what does single agency in real estate and mean in real estate? Well, what does dual agency mean in real estate? We know dual agency means that we represent the buyer and the seller. Well, what does single agency mean in real estate? Does it mean to represent either the buyer or the seller? Represent both the buyer and the seller? Represent multiple buyers? Operate without a brokerage? Okay, we're going to get rid of that one. All right. All right, represent either the buyer or the seller. Represent both the buyer and the seller. Represent multiple buyers. We need to get rid of one more.
Let's get rid of 3.
All right. Now we read the question over again. What does single agency mean in real estate? Is it 1, represent either the buyer or the seller? Represent both the buyer and the seller? Well, we know the definition of dual agency, so this is easy. This is easy money.
1.
Okay, right. It's going to be high too, 96%. All right. We're going to read down here. Represents either the buyer or the seller is the correct definition of single agency in real estate. This arrangement ensures that the agent's agent's loyalty is undivided, providing the client with the peace of mind that their agent is fully committed to their interests. For example, if an agent represents a seller, their focus is on securing the best possible sales price and terms for the seller's property. Conversely, if the agent represents the buyer, their efforts are directed toward finding the best property for the buyer at the most favorable price and term. This clear delineation of representation helps maintain the transparency and trust in the agent-client relationship. All right, we're going to do one more. And I'm going to show y'all something. I want somebody to show y'all something about commission too. Okay, yeah, that's going to be implied right there. That's about zoning. That's agency, but we won't do that. This is about a net listing. We won't do that. They're not going to ask us no questions. We'll go back to that. When I skip them, that's maintaining those questions to still be in there. So they're not going away. We're just not answering them right now. All right, we can do this one. How should an agent manage a conflict of interest to maintain ethical standards? Is it 1, by only representing one party in a transaction? Is it 2, by obtaining written consent for all parties after full disclosure? Let me stop there, and I'm gonna I ain't gonna stop there. I'm gonna just read the rest of them, and then we're gonna do what we do, and then I'll explain. Is it 3, by avoiding any discussion of conflict, or is it 4, by resigning from the agency relationship? Okay. Again, how should an agent manage conflict of interest to maintain ethical standards? Is it 1, by only representing one party in the transaction? Is it 2, by obtaining written consent from all parties after disclosure, after the full disclosure? Is it 3, by avoiding any discussion of the conflict? Is it 4, by resigning from the agency relationship? I'm gonna get rid of 3. That's no good. I need somebody else to get rid of 1. Let's see, anybody? Oh, okay, somebody got rid of 4. Somebody said 4. Okay, we're getting rid of 4. Now let's read the question again. How should an agent manage a conflict of interest to maintain ethical standards? Is it 1, by only representing one party? Is it 2, by obtaining written consent from all parties after full disclosure? All right, we need to make one of them our answer. Is it 1 or 2? Okay, we got one person going with 2. We got one person going with 1. All right. Now, Jasmine, you want to make money, don't you? Do you feel that you're competent in terms of representing 2 people? By the time you get done with this class, you're gonna be able to represent 2 people.
Right.
So, right? So, because you limit yourself by only representing one party to the transaction. But we need to get here so we can pick the right answer. All right. Here's the thing. This is what I was going to tell you. Why I will tell you why I was answering the question. Any answer on the test that says by obtaining written consent from all the parties or something to that nature is the answer. Period. Like if that's one of the answers, because you can never go wrong by obtaining written consent from any other parties. Never go wrong. I don't even know what question would make that a wrong answer in real estate. Okay, so that's how I think about it. All right. So what I wanted to talk to y'all about, and this is real important, and I wanted to show y'all this, because this is about y'all money. Y'all, we here to make money. We're not here to do anything else. We're here to make money and make sure people get into some quality housing and make sure that we get them in a good situation to move on with their life, their career, and everything. We don't want to get people stuck in bad deals. All right. So what I wanted to talk to y'all about is commission. This is real important because as a listing agent, as somebody that lists a lot of properties, when I go talk to my client, I'm going to either put them on a 6 or a 7% commission. When I go say it's going to cost, in other words, as soon as you go see them, they're going to ask you 2 questions. How much do I got to pay you? And how much am I going to get? It's going to be interchangeable. They might ask you how much they're going to get, or they're going to ask you how much I got to pay you. One of them going to be the first or second question. I don't know. I get asked both of them. So when they ask me how much I'm going to pay you, I'm going to say this commission is 6% on a deal. On $100,000, you're going to pay me $6,000. But you're not only going to pay me $6,000, I got to pay my broker money, and I got to pay if somebody brings the buyer to the table and their broker. When you get a listing, that commission is for everybody that's going to be associated in the deal. So that $6,000 has to be split up amongst multiple people. You're definitely going to have a broker. So you're going to have, remember when we first start talking, your agreement with your broker is going to tell you how much commission you get. So now you went and got a 6% commission on $100,000, that's $6,000. But your broker gets 30% of what you get. All right. So we sell a house. Let's just say we did dual agency, we get $6,000. My broker's going to get 30% of that because that's my deal. So in other words, my broker is going to get $1,800. All right. They're going to get $1,800 because they get 30% of the 6. All right. And so one of the main benefits of this class is when y'all start out, y'all probably going to start at a 70-30. But in about 6 months, you better be at an 80-20 because y'all going to know so much more. And the class is worth it just because of that. If I can take y'all from getting 30%, giving your broker 30% to 20%, that's $600 on a $100,000 listing, right? Now, if you can get to 90%, you really doing good. I don't know many realtors that got to 90%, but there are some companies out there that just got flat commission fee for the year. Like if you just pay them $4,500 or something like that, you got to get them $4,500, and then everything else you make after that is all your money. But I wanted to want y'all to understand that when you go get a listing, you get the commission for everybody, right? And then you and the seller agree to how it's going to be split up. Are you going to give the buyer's agent half of it or 2.5% or whatever? We're going to work the numbers. You don't need to worry about that. But I wanted to emphasize that typically you're on a 6 to 7% listing thing, a listing agreement. And when you go to that seller, that's the listing money or commission money for everybody in the transaction. So just remember that. I'm going to end it there. I really want to try to schedule a class for Saturday. So in the meantime, everybody just text me if they can make it Saturday, and then I'll and what time. Text me what time, and if you can make it. If you can't make it, just don't even text. If you can't make it, just I just want to make sure the people that can make it. And then just give me a time, and I'll try to work around everybody with that time. With that time, we can do early. We could and we could do late. Whatever the consensus is among the group, that's what I'm going to try to accommodate. Any questions? Any questions about anything? The class is going to be similar to this, but we're going to answer a whole bunch more questions. And that's it. So we are at 9:26. Anybody got any questions either through the feed or aloud? I want to ask y'all a question. How are y'all getting? Is some of this stuff making sense? Does it refresh from the classes that y'all took?
Yeah, it makes sense for me because I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember nothing from the classes. I took my
Okay.
class, so
You took it a while ago?
yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, but okay, so it
So
does start.
this is very helpful. Um, it's just very helpful, like the video, like the YouTube, so I could like listen to that on my anytime, which connects with the things we did today and the vocabulary. So everything is connecting for
Okay,
me.
good. Because this is one of the most important topics on the test. And this is if you're having like a gray area is kind of gray and you're not getting it, we got to get you to get it, because if you don't get agency, if you don't get contracts, if you told me I didn't get land use, okay, it's 5% of the test. I ain't gonna worry about that. But if you're not getting agency and you're not getting contracts, you're not getting principles of practice, we got to slow down, and we got to get it to get you there. All right. Now the main thing about it is your independent studies is crucial, because we need to be building blocks every day. We need to build upon this either through reinforcing what we went over or going the next step and start looking at the materials coming up. All right. Anything else? And don't forget to text me if y'all can make it this Saturday. We could go in the morning, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It don't make any, I don't care what time it is. Just let me know and just send me when y'all can get together, and then we'll do an hour. So we got 5 hours of study time in. I would say probably another 10 independently, about 2 hours a day, and just go over the same stuff, man. Don't try to cover a whole bunch. Get you about 5 or 10 things and master it every day. Because what's going to happen is it's going to be spillover. Like, okay, I read this kind of like this. All right, so that's it, y'all. I will send out a link for Saturday, and then we're back here Monday, definitely Monday. At the we're gonna start at 7 on Monday. I had a crammer to do with somebody that was in the last class that's getting ready to take her test on Monday. All right, so that's it. I will see everybody. Everybody have a good rest of their evening, and let me know. Just hit me up if you need anything.
All right. Thank you.
All right, no problem. This video gonna be posted to Zoom too. All right, and I'll send the link out once I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
You got it, y'all.